Did you know? The secret experiments they did on slaves in America.
Did you know that during slavery in America, some enslaved men and women were tortured, dissected, and experimented on, all in the name of science?
This part of history was buried deep, hidden behind plantation walls and polite society, but it was very real. They called them the Lynch Law experiments. These weren't ordinary punishments. They were carefully planned acts of cruelty carried out by slave owners and white doctors who wanted to prove that black people could endure more pain, needed less sleep, and didn't feel suffering the same way white people did. What they did in the name of research was beyond horrifying. In the 1800s, America was obsessed with science, but much of it was fake science, or pseudoscience, used to justify slavery. Doctors and scientists claimed black people were biologically inferior, made for hard labor, and even designed by nature to serve white masters. One of the most infamous of these doctors was Samuel Cartwright, a man who said that any enslaved person who tried to escape was suffering from a mental illness he invented called drapetomania. His cure: severe whipping or amputation. Under this twisted system, human beings became test subjects. Their pain became data. Their suffering became proof of scientific lies. In southern plantations, especially in places like Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama, certain slave owners began to experiment on their slaves in disturbing ways. Some tested how long a man could survive after multiple lashings before losing consciousness. Others timed how fast wounds healed when treated with salt, vinegar, or fire. Pregnant enslaved women were forced to give birth under observation, sometimes without assistance, so that white midwives could study black reproduction. And there were experiments on endurance. Enslaved people were made to work in the fields under unbearable heat with no water, to prove that Africans could survive harsh labor better than Europeans. One report from the 1850s described an enslaved man who was left exposed to freezing temperatures overnight, his skin blackened and blistered, just so a plantation doctor could record how long it took before death. Many of the doctors involved became famous, even honored, in American medical history. Dr. J. Marion Sims, often called the father of modern gynecology, performed surgeries on enslaved black women without anesthesia, believing they didn't feel pain the same way white women did. Women like Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy were experimented on over and over again, their screams ignored. These women's bodies built medical breakthroughs that white doctors would later take credit for, while they were left unnamed, unhealed, and forgotten. Even when slavery ended, the mindset continued. The belief that black bodies were stronger or less sensitive became a deadly myth that would echo for generations, in hospitals, in prisons, and even in modern medicine today. After the Civil War, many of these so-called Lynch Law experiments disappeared from textbooks. Plantation journals were burned, medical logs destroyed, and the survivors rarely spoke of what they endured, out of fear, shame, or trauma. But fragments of their stories survived in letters, hidden records, and oral history. Elderly descendants told of ancestors with scars that never healed, women who could not have children, and men whose bodies bore evidence of unspeakable tests. This wasn't just about physical pain, it was psychological warfare. These experiments were designed to send a message that black life had no value except as property. These atrocities aren't ancient history. They echo through time, in the Tuskegee syphilis study, where black men were left untreated for decades. In hospitals where pain reports from black patients are still taken less seriously today. And in the generational distrust of medicine that still exists in many black communities. The so-called Lynch Law experiments remind us that racism was not just social, it was scientific, institutional, and systematic. And though these stories are varied, they must be remembered, because silence allows history to repeat itself. The enslaved people who were tortured and experimented on never had their names written in history books. But today, we can speak them into memory and tell their truth. Because remembering is the first step toward healing.